Welcome back to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. I am Brad.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we had a special guest lined up today who could not make it, but he'll be back with us next week. He's both an NFC South Bucks fan and an AFC South fan. Joey Agan, otherwise known as the Deuce from X103 in Indianapolis, and now with Tampa 98 Rock here in Tampa Bay. And he's a big football fan, so couldn't make it today. He's going to join us next week. We'll look forward to that. So we don't have anybody for trivia battle, right?
Nobody this week. We'll have to push it off and make a good one next week with Joe.
Yeah. But like you said, the most passing yards was what would you say? The most MVPs was Tom Brady. The most passing yards was Drew Brees, and it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, all stuff that would have been easy to get. So, but Jeff had a good question. Who has the most all-time receiving yards from an NFC South team? Which was Tony Gonzalez.
Tony Gonzalez, yeah, that's cool. Okay, so fan poll. Who's in last place?
Well, this week it was a 50-50 split between the Bucks and the Saints, and the Falcons and Panthers had 0%. So
okay, well, I think we can all agree that we should start with the Panthers, don't we think? Don't you think?
Yeah, I got them at the bottom.
Yeah. I have this whole division having pretty decent years, but the Panthers are at the bottom of it.
Okay. All right. We'll get started with the Panthers. All right, Matt Rhule. Zach, I think this is where you're everybody's looking for young coaches that might be successful. This might actually, maybe for the first time in the analyzing that I've done to this point, may actually hit. So Matt Rhule's the fifth coach in Carolina franchise history. But, they're an expansive franchise. I haven't been around long, so it doesn't mean a whole lot. He was successful in Temple. He was head coach Temple 2013 to 16 and Baylor from 17 to 19. He resurrected both programs. He led both programs to consecutive bowl appearances in the last two seasons with each one. And at Baylor, he actually resurrected the program from 1-11 in 2017, and they were 11-1 in 2019, which is a pretty significant turnaround for any coach. So I've got to give him props on that. I don't know how it translates to the NFL, but I can't. I'm not going to take anything away from the guy. That's pretty remarkable. A little bit of Matt Rhule trivia is on September 5th of 2015. In front of 69,741 fans, Matt Rhule defeated his alma mater, 27-10 for the Owls' first win over this Big Ten college. It's the first win over this Big Ten college since 1941. Either one of you want to guess?
It was Temple against a Big Ten team?
Yep.
Ohio State.
You say Ohio State?
Yeah.
That is not correct.
Say Penn State.
Yeah, it's the Nittany Lions. Good guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's the first time Temple had beaten Penn State since 1941. That's pretty remarkable in and of itself. So he also has a phenomenal list of something like over 20 players that are currently playing in the NFL or have a potential to play in the NFL. That in itself is also pretty impressive. He has only 1 year of NFL experience, though, under Tom Coughlin in 2012. Wasn't exactly a stellar year. They were 9-7 and missed the playoffs. But I think with some of the young guys that we've broken down with very little experience, this guy deserves a shot. In my opinion, he's the guy to take a chance on. And I'll buy. I'm into it. I want to root for the guy. I'd like to see him do well. I think he's got some things stacked behind him to rebuild this program. Unfortunately, my gut says he probably won't. He'll probably be a statistic and go back into college where he'll be successful. But I hope he doesn't. I hope I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I think he'll do well. I don't see it happening this year at all. but I think in the next few years
Yeah,
we may start to build something up. Especially, I mean, with Brady, Breeze in the division, and Peyton and Arians coaching. Until all four of those guys are gone, I don't see the Falcons or the Panthers rising up like that. But who knows? He might be able to build a foundation and kind of work his way up and
yeah.
see what
Interestingly enough,
happens.
the I don't mean to cut you off. Interestingly enough, the offensive coordinator spent 2 seasons in the NFL working for Sean Payton with Drew Brees. Joe Brady, which he was with LSU last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we know what he did with LSU. So I think that is also a feather in this guy's cap. And then they've got a guy, the defensive coordinator is Phil Snow. He's been in the NFL like almost 40 years or something. It's just uh, ridiculous. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Zach. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I was just kind of talking. So
Yeah.
I got the Panthers having a pretty decent year. The coaches, I like what they've done with the coaches. It'll be interesting to see how it'll shake out. But their offensive coordinator just inherited a pretty decent offense. It's not over the top crazy, but I think Teddy Bridgewater has a lot of potential.
Agreed.
And coming out of the Sean Payton system, pretty much everybody that goes through Sean Payton's system gets better. And you pair him with a rising superstar in DJ Moore as his number one, and I think those two are going to both have Pro Bowl type years. They brought in Robbie Anderson to be a solid number two because Curtis Samuel's been pretty inconsistent in his career so far. Obviously, CMC is just, I mean, that dude's next level. That's why he's getting paid what he's getting paid. And, Joe Brady, like I said, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, he comes out of the Sean Payton system too. Before he went back into college, he was coaching with the Saints.
Yeah.
So I think the minds that they have and the coaching staff and the talent that they were able to bring in. I think that the Panthers have a good base right now. I don't think they're going to the playoffs. I have them 7-9 and last in the division. But they certainly have the base under them to be a good team in the next 3 or 4 years.
yeah, I don't see him doing that well. I have him 3-13. But I do think Bridgewater will do well as long as he could stay healthy. That's the main thing. But with Joe Brady and Matt Rhule, and you still have McCaffrey, picking up Robbie Anderson was huge too. But they did lose one of their Pro Bowl guards in Trey Turner. He went to 5 straight Pro Bowls before he was traded to the Chargers for Russell Okung, I think. And then you lost Luke Kuechly to retirement, which will hurt tremendously on the defensive side. But to make up for that, they had a stellar draft. I think every single pick that they took this year was on the defensive side. So the next few years, their defense will be good. And as long as they can keep McCaffrey healthy and Bridgewater healthy, in the next few years, they'll do something special.
Yeah. And their defensive coordinator, Phil Snow, he was with Rhule and helped them build Temple and Baylor both into formidable defensive powerhouses. So, I mean, the pieces are all here. They really are all here if they can pull everybody on the same page. But with Sean Payton's influence overshadowing this whole thing, they probably will. So I think we'll be having different conversations. I hope we'll be having different conversations about the Panthers in the years to come.
Yeah, I think we will.
Yeah, I do too. All right, ready to move on to the Falcons?
Let's get to it.
This is a team going the other direction. I'm not buying what I know, and I know that you guys are going to disagree with me. I think, guys, they started out 1-7 last year. I know they got it turned around and got a 6-2 run, but he's in his 6th year. They won the division once, and he's only 43-37 in his tenure here. And what's his legacy? I hope he wrote Bob a thank you note when the Texans got absolutely embarrassed by the shellacking lost that 24-0 leads because it it overshadows what they did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots when they blew their 21-3 halftime lead. I don't know, man. I don't know if he can hold this together. I don't know how they turned around a 1-7 record to end up finish 7-9. I don't know if they start out slow again like that this year. I don't know that he can pull it together, and I think the locker room begins to unravel. I hope I'm wrong. I know that there's some players in here that we're going to bring up. No doubt that some people are going to have different opinions, but I think this might be the beginning of the sinking ship.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's been going downhill ever since the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
this year I have them 8-8, just an average team. But that's primarily because you have all the experience in Matt Ryan. Julio Jones is still a beast. And they did pick up Todd Gurley, so if he can stay healthy and be productive, that'll win them some ball games there. As far as the rest of their team, they lost Austin Hooper. He went to Cleveland, I believe. He was their stud tight end. Replaced him with Hayden Hurst, who hasn't really done anything in Baltimore, which is why Baltimore shipped him out. And then Calvin Ridley, who's been improving. This will be his make or break year this year, I think. Last year, he stepped it up and started to gain more traction. And this year, he can either explode and I wouldn't say be another Julio Jones because not very many people are on that level, but he may explode and be able to free Julio up quite a bit, which will make their offense that much better. So it's a big year for him. We'll see how he does, but overall, I just consider them a average team this year.
Yeah, pretty much. Average is about as good as it's going to get. Although I like a lot of the players on the Falcons. I think they have a lot of talent, but there are a couple guys on their defense that over the last couple of years just can't stay healthy. Kind of that Bob Sanders effect, where it's just when you have these guys on the field, it's great to have them, but you just don't have them enough to keep these guys around and to keep you winning. Because when that defense is healthy, like when Deion Jones and Damani Casey, when these guys are healthy, easily one of the best units in the league. But they just get hurt so often. And last year, you talked about how they started out was it 1-7 and finished 6-2. When that change happened with the team when they put Raheem Morris to call the plays for their defense, and they were one of the lowest takeaway teams in the first half of the year, and then were one of the best in pretty much every defensive category. Completely flipped their defense, and they were able to start winning games. So I think with the addition of Gurley, like Matt Ryan last year, quietly had a career kind of year. He had 4,400 yards, 11 300-yard games, which is third most in NFL history. And
let's stop at 4,400 yards for a second. I don't care who you are, man. Those are numbers. That's real football right there.
Yeah,
you just can't be a jackass and put up 4,400 yards. You just can't.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because nowadays, even with it being a passing league, any quarterback that gets to 4,000 yards, people are still wildly impressed with it.
Yeah.
So to have almost 4,500 yards and to not make the playoffs is pretty crazy, which I think again speaks to the defense. And you can score all the points you want, but just like when Peyton was playing, if your defense can't stop them, you're just not going to be able to make Super Bowls. And I think that's going to hold them back this year. I have them going 9-7, third in the division, 7 seed in the playoffs, but I don't have to do anything there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sounds about right. They're potentially a playoff team. They may or may not. I mean, I think they probably come down the last couple of weeks. They're waiting for somebody else to lose. And if you're in a position where you have to wait for somebody else to lose to get in, you probably don't deserve to be there.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. I don't know who's next, man. This is one of my. I'm so excited to watch this division fall out for this reason. Who do we go with? We go the hometown favorite, or we go with the tried and true?
I say we roll with the Saints.
All right. I just want to go as a disclaimer that I'm a Bucs fan. we are Bucs fans because we live in Southwest Florida. We're also Colts fans because we're from Indianapolis. So I want to mention a disclaimer here that I don't know who's going to win this division. This is going to be. I hope it's going to be a battle royale and come down to the very end.
Oh yeah, it's going to be super entertaining and exciting all season long.
Yeah. So just because we're in Southwest Florida and we have a lot of listeners down here, and we're going to talk about the Bucs last, but it doesn't mean we couldn't talk about the Saints last. First of all, I'm going to start this out with Sean Payton right here. You can bleep that out. I'm telling you, man. Look, listen, this guy. I don't need to go over his resume. 131 and 77. He's got a 631 percentage. 6 division titles. 2 NFC championship games. Should have won both of them. Right? Controversy with the Rams cost him a game it shouldn't have cost him. 1 Super Bowl title that could have been 2. I mean, his coaching tree is ridiculous. We just talked about that. The guy just has it together. He just knows what he's doing. He's got arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And both of them know that time is ticking. I mean, Sean knows it. Breeze knows it. I know it. You know it. The clock is ticking. And you want to take guys that know how to win and have a passion to win, and you tell them they got 1 shot left, you better put your money on them. And they're the de facto favorite. In my opinion, they're the team. It's theirs to lose. Now we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get into the next team, because it depends on what the Bucs do. But you can't bet against them.
Oh, I agree. I think I have them 13-3, same as the Bucs. Both are 5-1. They're going to split the division. The Saints are returning 10 Pro Bowlers. The only Pro Bowler that they're not returning is Larry Warford, who they released. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler in his 3 years with the Saints, but he got destroyed by the Vikings last year in the playoffs. I think they had like 3 sacks on Breeze and multiple knockdowns. So they're going to replace him with their first-round pick and Cesar Ruiz. He's from Michigan, which Michigan's an offensive line factory, always pumping out NFL linemen. So they think because Ruiz is more athletic that he's going to upgrade that position to an already stellar offensive line. Then you have Breeze, Kamara, Michael Thomas on the back or on the side. And they also picked up Emmanuel Sanders. So their offense is even better than it has been, in my opinion. So they're going to snap off this year, and then their defensive side's still looking great. So it's a toss-up in the division. I think I went with the Bucs just because. But I wouldn't be surprised. And I hope to see the Saints get back to the Super Bowl. I think that would be an awesome Super Bowl to watch. I like Drew Brees. He went to Purdue. We're from Indiana. Yeah. Always rooted for Brees. So, and as Jeff was saying in one of the previous episodes, hopefully this is the year that Brees gets the MVP.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just saw something earlier today, actually, that Drew Brees has the most second place finishes in MVP voting in NFL history with 4 times, which is, but that's product of
second place is the first place loser or something like that, right?
Yeah. That'll happen when you got Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in the league with you,
the guy's just phenomenal. I mean, I'm just joking about the first place loser because I love watching the guy play.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I think he's going to have another big year. A lot of people are talking about, Breeze is getting older, and the only way he can stay effective at the end of the year is if he has a couple games off, through the season, whatever. And I just don't think that's the case. I think the offense get stagnant through the year because they've really only had Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas. And, once you get towards the end of the year and you start to play these teams that are playoff bound and trying to play to get in the playoffs, and they figure you out, they play you harder, and so it has an effect. But like Zach said, I think Emmanuel Sanders coming in is going to be huge. That's going to change the whole dynamic of the offense. You're going to be able to free up Michael Thomas a little more. You can't just keep double and triple covering him because you also have to take care of Jared Cook. And he's going to be third possession guy. Alvin Kamara is a wild card. He can come out of the backfield. He can hit the hole. The offensive line, PFF actually recently put out their offensive line grades coming into 2020 season, and the Saints are number 2 ranked behind the Colts. Coming into the year, they were number 5 ranked coming out of last season, so they still have the elite offensive line. And you talk about their defense. Their defense just continues to get better as these guys grow together and get older. Marshawn Lattimore is a lockdown corner, and their front seven. I don't think enough people talk about Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport, but those two working together are as good as any tandem on the defensive line in the league. And Demario Davis, right? He's there in the linebacking group, and he commands the field. I would trust him just like I would trust Luke Kuechly to command the defense. That's the kind of trust I have in Demario Davis to do that job. I have them 14-2, second in the division, and just something to note: they have the 9th easiest schedule this year,
which will work in their favor.
Absolutely.
But I don't think they need it. I think it'll help, but I don't think they need it. Now we're on to the Bucks. We're going to start with Bruce Arians. I'm a huge Bruce Arians fan. This guy, he took over for Pagano in Indianapolis. Everybody loved Pagano, and then Pagano got cancer, and everybody likes to root for the guy with cancer, and he's a nice guy, and everybody loved him. But guys, I think Arians was the engineer driving that machine. When he took over for him, interim, they went 9-3. And actually, that's the best win-loss record for an interim coach in NFL history. So that was in 2012. Went to Arizona, man, 10-6, 11-5, and 13-3 in his first 3 years. You can't argue that. And with the Bucks last year, they were 7-9, despite Winston throwing 847 interceptions on the year. I think like 17 of them against Indianapolis while we were there. Which isn't completely fair. I mean, I'm joking about Winston. It's not completely fair because the defense last year was ranked 20th overall. But both of those problems appear to have been solved, right? We'll talk about the defense in a minute, but we got to talk about the story. It's Brady and Gronk, baby. I mean, you ship Winston out and you bring in perhaps the greatest of all time and Tom Brady.
I see what you did there.
Talk about the perfect pieces to a puzzle to push a franchise over the top. This might be it. It really might be Arians' year to push this to the end. Last year they were ranked 11th overall, and I think they led the league in passing yards. And now they brought in Brady and Gronk, and I don't see it going backwards. Byron Leftwich is their offensive coordinator. I really don't have anything to say about that except for the dude's under Bruce Arians and he gets to work with Tom Brady, and Leftwich will probably come out of this experience probably one of the top offensive coordinators in the league before it's over if things work out right. A really good opportunity for him. The defense sucked last year. But now Arians has brought in Todd Bowles, and he, at first glance it looked like he didn't do anything in New York. But the Jets, when Bowles was there, they were one of the top 10 defenses. They held opponents to 4 yards per carry. They held the opposing quarterbacks to only a 60% completion average. He comes back to work with Arians. Because he was instrumental in the Cardinals' success in 13 and 14, which were one of the best defenses in the league. I know some people are overhyping this, some people are blowing it off, but I'm telling you, the Bucks got a real shot to win the Super Bowl this year.
I agree with you, 100%. I'm going to touch on the coaching staff as well. Bruce Arians, when he took over for the Colts, I was hoping that the Colts would retain him as a head coach and let go Pagano, which I understand you can't in that situation because Pagano had cancer and the whole political backlash and all that stuff. So I understand why, but he's a great head coach, which is why the Bucks jumped on him when they could when he was in retirement. And Todd Bowles, he's a great coordinator, as you were talking about. And I think it was 2014 he won the Assistant Coach of the Year award
That's
under
right.
Bruce Arians.
Yep.
So I think their defense is going to be stellar. And then, of course, you bring in Brady and Gronk, are two of the best ever in their positions. Couple them with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, two returning Pro Bowl receivers who had Jameis Winston thrown to them last year. So their offense is going to be flying high. And in addition to Gronk, you still have O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. So you could run dual tight end sets. You have Evans and Godwin on the outside. And Ronald Jones Jr., he's pretty productive back too. So, I mean, how do you defend that? So as long as the offensive line can hold up, their offense is going to be fantastic this year. And then they got some players on the defensive side. They got Ndamukong Suh back in JPP and picked up quite a bit in the draft too. So, like I said earlier, I got them 13-3. They're going to be neck and neck right there with the Saints, and either one of those two teams could end up coming out as Super Bowl champions this year.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It looks pretty likely, really. They have so much talent on that roster, and what Brady's done in all his years in New England. They ran a lot of 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end, or 1 running back sets, right? And you have 3 usable tight ends on this roster, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So I expect to see a lot of the same kind of stuff that Brady's been running. I think the only question really is going to be how good can that offensive line be. Most of Tom's years in New England, he had pretty elite offensive lines. Last year, he doesn't have a good offensive line. What happens? The offense kind of sputters. Defense carried that team last year. They lost DeMar Dotson, and I think he either retired or just never got picked up. I don't know how that worked out. But they drafted Tristan Wirfs to replace him. He looks like an animal. Obviously, you can't really tell how offensive linemen are going to do. They just got to plug and play. But he looks like an animal. There's a question mark, though. I believe his name is Donovan Smith. Yeah, is talking about it not being worth playing this year because of the whole COVID thing. So we'll have to see how that goes. They might not have their starting left tackle coming into the year. But outside of that, I expect them to have just as effective of a year this year as they did last year on offense. Their front seven is nasty. They were able to get Ndamukong Suh. JPP just doesn't get talked about. I don't know how JPP affects pretty much every game he plays in still.
With one hand.
With one hand. The secondary's young and they need to improve. That was the weak point of that defense last year too. And if they can't improve, the offense is still going to have trouble keeping leads in games. Kind of the same deal as the Falcons there. But overall, I have them going 15-1 this year, first in the entire conference. And
who's your one loss? Saints?
Yeah, I have them going 5-1 in the division and splitting with the Saints.
Yeah, that's that whole coin flip thing I always talk about. Head to head, I don't know what to expect out of these two teams. The amazing thing about the Bucks that we've all three talked about is it's going to be interesting to see which is going to be better, their offense or their defense. I mean, they very easily could have overall have a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. I mean, this is going to be a fun team to watch. I'm really excited.
Yeah, no doubt. Like the first week of the season, having the Saints play the Bucks is beautiful. I can't wait.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Well, any last words? Anything you want to throw in before we go?
Just excited to watch this division this year.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning's still the GOAT over Tom Brady.
I thought about you when I said that. I thought I probably just really, really upset Jeff. that's an argument that'll last forever between the two. But you can't argue
Unless,
with 6 rings, man.
unless Brady wins one in Tampa, then how do you defend the whole systematic argument? You know.
Mm.
We'll see how good that defense is, but that's a conversation for another day. Tom Brady's always had elite defenses. I'm just saying.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I agree with you, and that's why that argument will never die. They'll be having that same argument 40 years from now.
Yep, absolutely.
But it's cool that Peyton's in that conversation, and we touched on this earlier. I hate it for guys like Breeze. You know, that guy has had such a career that he should be in that type of conversation, and he's probably not going to be. And unless he wins another one, we'll see. I mean, he'll always be in the conversation, but not the GOAT conversation. It's like when people are bickering about Jordan and LeBron, and I'm like, what about Kobe? Yeah, it's a weird thing. But all right, cool. So next week we are going to go over the AFC South, and with our special guest, the Deuce, and we don't need a guest. We'll do some trivia, and we got a fan poll. Have you posted the fan poll yet on the page?
Yeah, it's up on our Facebook and Twitter page at Horsemen Sports. Feel free to check us out. Get on there, vote. All you got to do is hit a little reaction emoji, so it's not too difficult to vote, and comment. Let us know what you think. We'll get in a nice discussion. And
Yep. All right, so like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends. We appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
That's right. See you next week.
All right.